Hey, everybody, and welcome to Badge Banter, where we feature some awesome guests from the industry and share stories about just what's happening in the security industry, or, of course, one of my favorite topics, the importance of the badge. I'm Lindsay Martinez from Badge Fast, and today I'm super excited to have one of my favorite guests of all time on, Lee Odess from the Access Control Collective. Lee, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely happy to do it. Now, this will be my second time. So am I in the leaderboard or like, where am I at?
You're up there, but I have had
Wow.
several guests that have are second-time guests in the second season. So, but I think you're like ahead of the pack because you also were a keynote speaker at our Badge Up event
All right.
this
Thank you.
February.
This
So
is
you're
very
winning.
important to me. This is very important to me.
I
So
figured
thank
it
you.
was. I know you're a little competitive, but
Very.
one of the reasons I have you as a guest all the time is because A, I like chatting with you and it's fun, but
Same.
B, I think you're always like very upfront and direct with your opinions on things, which, you know, I appreciate. And so I don't really think that you need an introduction since we've done this before. So I'm just going to dive right in
Good.
and get to the meat of it. So recently, obviously, I subscribe to the Access Control Executive Brief and
Appreciate that.
we read a lot about your opinions and thoughts, and you share those obviously a lot with all of us. But you've written several posts recently that really resonated with me, which is why I wanted to kind of bring you back.
Okay.
And one of the articles you wrote recently was titled "The Secret to Enterprise System Scaling is ... badging question mark." And
Oh yeah. I'm sure you love this. Yeah.
you
It's
knew
like
I
catnip.
loved it. You knew when I got
Yeah.
it, I was very excited about it probably. But in that article, you talked about how you attended a work conference with your wife and there were all these other companies there from like software enterprise organizations, not security industry people.
Yeah.
And you were asking them about access control and they didn't define it that way. They were really just thinking about like user experience and workflow. So
Yeah.
can you elaborate a little bit more on those conversations that you had and like what you learned from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, these people work within workflow. So like, that's their like love language that they know. So that's how they think about access control as like a set of workflows that delivers safety and security. It's also, they think of things like automation and other things that happen from a cyber side. They just apply their knowledge base from their point of view, or like I like to say, they use their kaleidoscope to define sort of our industry versus coming over to our industry and sort of defining it that way, right? So what's always interesting is like explain like what we do and like blah blah, and they're like, oh, like badging. And you're like, yeah, the badge. Exactly. So like it gravitates, but in some ways it gravitates back to the simple, right? And the thing that is relatable. And the other thing that they gravitate always to is like when they say, no, we're not in the access control industry. I'm like, really? Like, why? And they're like, oh, we don't do hardware. So like that's the other one on their end that they do. But they look at it as, because from an IT standpoint, from a workflow standpoint, if they're working with like HR, and tying systems together and having to have a level of automation and compliance, possibly, the onboarding and offboarding of people and giving people access to, say they work like here, they need access to, say, an office in Santa Clara or Paris. That's a workflow that they're looking to streamline versus having to have a dedicated person that's necessarily doing that on a regular, like they default to the workflow. And they also, I think, the badge in a lot of ways to them is an expression of the identity, the work self-identity, just like the email address was, and is, the badge is an expression of that. So it's sort of like a natural, I've been using this example, but like some people wear an ornament on their tree, and from the HR department, some of the aspects of our industry that we see as features are actually just ornaments that hang off of somebody else's trees that have additional functionality. And maybe like, they slide a little bit of like the use of that particular thing is like multi-use, which my opinion is where like the exponential value is. It's sort of like the value moves around the Venn diagram that happens, and in security it moves further to the right because you're delivering safety and security, right? But in HR it may be a little bit less because it's about identification and about whether they're on or off the organization. Yeah, right. So that's, if I was to put myself in their shoes, that's how they are looking at it. They're not looking at it as like a credential.
Right.
Like it's them, that's totally like Those two things are completely isolated.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I have always felt like in the security industry, like I've always told, we tell this story, like the badge comes first and the other stuff comes second. And so when you were talking about it from the lens of the customers, they're seeing it as like a badge that does stuff, right? Not like an access control system that has a badge.
Yeah, and it could even be that. So to be honest, I don't think they think that much about it
Mm-mm.
in a lot of ways, but they understand the, again, our industry is like, that big to them on a lot of things that it does. The badging happens to be this part of what it is. That's the part they know. They just don't know all this other stuff because they're like hardware.
Yeah.
Like they just like leave it alone. So it's just interesting for me to think about as we talk about convergence within the IT industry, the language that we use and what we talk about when we go to them. These are the relatable bits and pieces that they know. So there's sort of like short bridges to speaking to them and bringing them over into the industry as well. That's how I viewed it. That's why I asked the questions of just like, they ask me what I do. I give them answers to it and they're like looking at me crazy and they're like, oh, like badging. And I'm like, I should have probably just led with that.
Yeah, like badging.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love that one. And then you've also been on a tangent, not a tangent, but I mean, like a lot of your talk track recently has been about like the importance of notifications as part of like that user experience and workflows. And so like, how do you see notifications fitting into that story from an end user perspective and like fitting into badging workflows or security workflows?
So yeah, a couple ways. So you can call them tangents because I know you had Hillary on here recently, and this is this. So what you're actually saying, my tangent is actually that. Like, so this is like how I typically work: is I get an idea or a thought, and I obsess about it, and then I write about it, and it's sort of this like, but it's my way of getting assurance back or like where I'm wrong, and like just sort of working through it. So it is 100% a tangent. I feel I'll start with my tangent. And summarize it. I feel notifications is an immense value to the people we serve and massively bored and not interested and invested in by us as an industry. Reminds me of visitor management. So visitor management, when we were an analog industry primarily, even in electronic access control, was seen as like a compliance thing or nice to have kind of cool factor of taking a clipboard. And come to realize it's actually a digital interface of around identity and the people that are coming. And like when everybody became a visitor because of COVID, you had to do health attestation, all that stuff. It like moved where we started as an industry, which was the door, it moved it to people's houses and it was in the palms of their hand at that point. So we extended our industry out to this. It was no longer just visitor management. It was a digital interface to the industry. Same thing with intercom. When you look at multifamily, the rest of it was always seen as a side hustle to our industry. And now I can make an argument and you can go meet people like Butterfly MX who, will be like, yeah, it's real. It's big. You got people like Chamberlain, like, yeah, it's a big business. But we've, as an access control industry, have historically, ignored it. So the notifications, though, in my opinion, especially as things become more digital as an industry, it's how we communicate, how we interact, the way that we do, the language we use, where we do it, when we do it, meeting them at, like, we talk about user experience. That is a user experience. Like any of us that have an application on our phone that sends us stupid notifications, like my treadmill that I have here that does, like, literally no use. Constant sending me stuff that doesn't impact me. I don't think it'd be very hard for them to figure things out that impact me, but they just have not thought about it because there's probably some product manager or some communications for probably not communicated product manager that's like, all right, we have the notifications. Cool. So we're going to send SMS. Got it. Good. And then there's someone that's like, well, they need to be able to opt in and opt out. Okay, good. Opt in, opt out. Got it. And then they come up with like whatever their thing is that they're going to do, but it's like not really thought through. So I think when I look at these systems that are coming out now, especially ones that are a lot of them that are like platform based and are pushing AI as sort of a differentiator. So they're AI native, cloud native. uh, they're thinking about it in a different way because they're looking at our industry as data. And then they're saying, like, what do we do with the data? Part of what they do with the data is they serve it in an elegant way, typically thoughtful, because that is their purpose, is to deliver information, whether it's automated on its own or actually actionable data for someone to do something that I think, frankly, if we look outside our industry, companies like Life 360 do a really good job of that type of stuff. Like my bank, actually, I'll give them credit. They do a good job of it. I'm a big flyer on United. They've done a really nice job of it now, where they used to be terrible at that. So there's examples and stuff that we can emulate. We don't have to like pretend like we just invented notifications and we should start doing it. So that's the rant. That's the sort of thesis that I'm chewing on right now. That if I was in the access control industry working on a product, I would be really thinking about how do we do. I think people can differentiate, especially if I'm doing mobile. Like, how do I differentiate myself with the way that I'm communicating through notifications to a person? Because I've said this a lot. I truly believe it. It's amazing to me, an industry that cares deeply and has such value delivered in feelings about protecting people, but we don't care about people. Like, we just have never interacted with who they are. Like, they're a card in a lot of ways, right? Like,
Right.
we protect them, and that's our job. But like, it's literally like they walk by us and we never say hello. We don't ask their name. Like, it's like we just like, who cares? But we care deeply about protecting that person. Now, I actually think we have to care deeply about how these people feel, where they're at, the situational awareness, what's the intent of why they're here, like all of these things that would matter. Like if I show up to a building, if I'm I say I work in a building, but it's also where my dentist is. There's things within this tool that I have called my phone and probably my application that would know I'm not there for work. I'm here for this, and they would talk to me that way, and have a relationship that almost our systems are becoming alive the same way that they would interact with a human being.
Right.
So that's why that's my story. Now I didn't get the badging, but I'll take a breath there so you can say something.
No, that's helpful. I think you're right. I mean, we can you're not interacting with someone at a card level. It's not like dynamic in that once I issue it to you, it's there. But like now that you have devices in everybody's hands, whether it's a systems user or the actual like end user, card holder, person that interacts with your system, not like the administrator of it, you do have an opportunity there to interact with them more. You didn't touch on it from a badging perspective, but when you think about the issuance workflow, and actually, I'm really curious on this from two perspectives, because there's like physical badge issuance and mobile credential issuance. And that process potentially could be very different. Do you think that should be different and therefore notifications should be different? Or you think they should be similar in how you issue those?
Well, I think it depends. And I know that's a stupid answer, but like we can talk about verticals, we can talk about user types, because it's not just if I think about from the analog badge side of things, like the notifications and the thought of how would actually maybe be back up into the system to the person that is responsible for badging and that is issuing badging, or even the secondary effects of like, HR probably would kind of want to know, like, did somebody lose a badge? There's ways that we communicate back to them that has always been like reports, or dashboards, right? But now it's sort of like a proactiveness that could help and make it a little bit more dynamic. My gut feeling on reaction of when we say like, should it be the same? My gut would be no, just maybe more for like badge and mobile, just for the fact that it allows the opportunity to create. You may end up in the same place that they're the same, but I wouldn't want to start out of the gate and say they have to, because you're probably limiting yourself some levels of imagination and creativity that may make sense. That's like, hey, from an analog badge, we're going to treat it this way versus the digital badge because they're used differently and done in the wrong way. So I would go that way for it. I do think though there are probably I mean the notification side of a analog badge is actually probably more from the badge to whoever you're interacting with, of the things that it's saying on that side, to give you somewhat more, um, you know, like non-updated, I guess. Although I recently was looking at some of these badges that I saw from some people where they, they're timed badges and things like that. So like thinking about that, maybe the badging notification side is sort of like when like I go to my kid's school, I have to like type in information and it gives me like that critical time of that around notifications and stuff that it's giving me, and that split second of information exchange that's happening right there that maybe is on the badge, like to give me information. Because typically, I don't know about you, but like every time I go to school, I get the badge and like it's like, I'm like looking around like I don't know where I'm supposed to go type thing. So like there could be some things like that, or you're seeing badges now with RFID inside of it, and there's digital signage opportunities, sensor data and stuff like that. So I mean, there's a lot that you probably could do with that. Yeah.
To interact with it. No, you're right. That when you were talking about the issuance workflow, so you were saying I think they could be different. I could go either way on this. So here's my thing: like in mobile credential space, it feels like everybody talks about how NFC wallet credentials are always user initiated, meaning like I request that credential, which you can. I could, as an employee, say I want a wallet credential, but I feel like, and this could be a misconception of how like the market's leading, is that that's how people want it. But a lot of times from an organizational perspective, like me as the employer, I don't want you to necessarily request it. Like I want to provision you a credential, and whether that's physical or digital. So there's potentially a use case for both workflows. One where you say, hey, I want this card. Like as a member, I would say I want credential. As an employer, I might say you get this credential.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing there is as an industry, we market things based off of typically what we didn't have from the past. So this idea of me being able to request credential, like through my mobile from a convenience side versus having to go into a portal or things like that to go get it, or, whatever the process was historically before, you're hearing a lot more about that, just because, in my opinion, because we didn't have that before. So now everything that's new is, like the most important thing. And that's part of our problem as an industry of how we market, is that we're just so freaking excited to talk about this sort of progress thing iterated off of the last 30 years of what we've had, because it's new to us. I mean, I'm like right now, I make my favorite one is all these companies now that are coming out talking about how they have cloud on their systems. Like it's, like they literally invented it. And just because it's new to them, it's actually at some point there's diminishing returns about how you message those things out, because it turns into the like, what do you mean you didn't have that already? Like, right? Like we're getting a little bit there with mobile, in my opinion. It's just because at some point, and we're here, it's almost to the point like if you don't have it, you were either stubborn or asleep. I don't like at this point, and frankly, that's not fair. Some of it is also you just were, low on the approval process, maybe for being late, or whatever, that the people that bless us to be able to do NFC credentialing, right? Wallets. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It's net positive. Like I know I like to moan about it, just so how it is net positive. There's so much opportunity. I just want us to do more.
I agree. So mobiles specifically, I mean, like you and I have talked about this. I had you on like a year ago and we talked about mobile, and now here we are, it's probably a year and a half later, and adoption, I mean, is growing, but still relatively low. And there's a variety of factors that impact the adoption of those for sure. But like, what do you think slows down mobile credential adoption the most?
I mean, my opinion is that the truth is the majority of our industry is already seated customers and opportunity. Like that's the bulk, the big part. It's like the stuff that's already there. So the retrofit need, whether it's devices or even just the figuring out how to get it, is sort of like slow and it isn't ubiquitous. And there's some catching up that we've had to do as an industry, both from a technical but then a human side of just like, do we like this thing? Do we want this thing? My roadmap, priorities, like let's wait to see if customers want it, whatever. Like there's a little bit of that. the megatechs have all also have admitted the fact that there was forums before, there wasn't forums, the process to get into, like there's a lot of feeling out because it's new type of thing. There's new players that come in, and now there's new relationships, and the newness of it, I think, gets into that. Now, there's a lot. I mean, you hear a handful of things. I do think it's gaining momentum continuously. Some of the what is the lack of desired adoption has got more to do with the fact that we just want it now. Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, to a person, will this be a thing like ubiquitously like out there? Sure, there are verticals and things and situations, but those will be they're going to be the outliers. The reality is that this is going to be, a thing, and it is. And we won't be talking about necessarily the adoption of it, because it'll just be like, no one's like, tell me the adoption of procs, right? Like, it's just adoption of it. Like, it's there. I think we're not far from that. So some of it's just patience, but then there's things like pricing. There's value creation stories. Like, I do think we need to do a better job of talking about the things that it enables more than the things that it does. Like, unlocking a door, with all due respect, it's cool, but like, it's not like the end. So we've already done our 4 laps around the track of patting ourselves on the back for the ability of taking a card and putting it in a phone and unlocking a door. Let's stop doing that, and let's now talk about doing the hard work, looking at verticals and saying, here's the value that it creates because we have this platform to be able to deliver higher levels of security, higher levels of convenience, operational efficiency stories, revenue generation stories, notification stories. Start telling mainstream market stories versus telling cottage industry stories. I do believe that's getting in the way of what I think would be a far either perceived greater adoption, in reality also greater adoption.
I think you're right. I mean, you've always been pretty steadfast on your beliefs about us getting the storytelling wrong. But for me, it isn't necessarily the storytelling. Like, we make it too complex. So, like, it's not hard to issue and provision a physical badge. Like, I know how to do that. Customers know what to expect, and they know what it'll work with. Like, that's pretty cut and dry because it's been around. Then on the NFC side, like, it's complex because, like, so many different players made it complex. So, like, if you could cut through that and just make it easy at the same level that you make it easy with physical badges, like, I think you get through a lot of that noise and you pick up adoption.
You do, but like, again, anything that's new, it's like, it's difficult until you start doing it more too, right? Like, and then it becomes norm. So I think there's like, you get a new car, you sit inside of it. I mean, just change from like an Apple device to a Windows device, and it's literally like, that scene at the Zoolander when they're hitting the computer because, like, they can't just figure it out. They have no idea what to do with it, right? Like, it's the same type. So it's just new. It becomes muscle memory, and and then that stuff gets out of the way, and then we can start to really, I think, just pile on value and pile on adoption, and and it becomes like good for everybody. Yeah, it's like what we do. Correct.
Yes. All right. So that said, like, what's your prediction? Like, one prediction that you have for badges or credentials, like 5 years from now?
I believe badges become more of a, you have not, I don't know what the question was. So this is literally off the top of my head. I believe badges become more of a fashion statement than they currently are today. Okay.
You're going to have to elaborate on that.
I fundamentally believe that, so a couple things. I think there's more of an emotional attachment from to consumers, end users, into the badges for a couple things, especially ones that, and there's different types of badges, right? As you know.
Yes.
A badge that I get when I work, it's typically like the first thing I take a picture of and the last thing I take a picture of. That, to me, that's about moments. It's the same feeling you get when you pick up your phone and you look at, when Apple does the surprise and delight of the pictures that you have in like Google Photos, where like you're like, man, like, I didn't realize how small my kids were, or I don't remember like that, and they show you all the memories, right? I think there's an emotional tie a lot that if I'm in the enterprise standpoint that we don't pay enough attention about, that I do believe we could take more advantage of. Second of all, in some places of work and in some, cities and other places, it's more important. Fashion is a very important part of the self-expression of people. And there's a need, in my opinion, to match the expression of people to the things that they're putting on them. And if there's a way for us to tie that more in, there's an emotional tie to it, I actually think we can deliver a bit more security because they will be more willing to want to wear something that they're proud of, that maybe it helps them express who they are, versus this thing that they're given that ruins their entire swag of why they got dressed and expressing who they are. Like, I think there'll be more creative around that, and it'll become, they're not going away at all. And then if I was even like go even into, you look at events and stuff, and you and I spend a lot of time at events. Badges suck at events, and I know why they do. I get it. There's also like this level of like where when you're putting events on, it's like you try to cover every detail, but at some point you reach that screw it point where you're just like, they're getting sticker badges.
Yeah, whatever happens, We're going.
Yeah, like I'm gonna ask for some grace on this one, right? Now that might be, other areas where you do it and this matters, but I do think that for the importance of that thing that we have around our neck to the level of detail that we put towards care of it, don't match. They just don't. And I think it becomes a differentiator for people that should matter more, where money and time and resources can be spent. And this is as someone who puts on shows, like one of the agonizing places that Hillary and I spend time on that we have said screw it and we're just going to kind of go has been around that badges, right? So like I'm speaking my own talk here that as somebody I need to spend more time there, but like those are just a couple. I'll give you another one. I think when I go ticketing, you've seen it a bit in ticketing, right? Like some of these tickets you get and they're like heavy and you can like, they're made to be framed, but they're also like, if I have a VIP box at, whatever stadium, I wear that thing around, like literally.
Yes.
Like, it's like, it is the shining, like I'm this is me. Right.
I'm a VIP.
I think you can do more with that and maybe, incorporating it more. I do wonder sometimes too, like, like this T-shirt could become more of a badge in some ways and stuff. I mean, there's ways that I think as we start to create more experiential, we start to engage more with end users, our products, the consumerization of the products on that end are going to bleed into the commercial B2B side of what we have. And, we're going to want nice things. Like people want nice things.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking about it as events. Like think about how many times you're in a virtual call with someone and they have like something behind them and like all their badges and lanyards from like all the events they've attended are hanging there.
Correct.
And most of them are ugly and horrible badges. Like we worked a PDK event a few weeks ago after we launched our integration with them and did the badging for it. And like, I can't tell you, I do this every day, so it's different, but like how many people came up to us and were like, these are really cool. Like these are customized, they're matched the branding. Like you printed it for me in 2 seconds. If you didn't have one already pre-printed for me when I showed up, like I expected that to be a really drawn out process and you made that happen right away. And like, you can create that experience. It's just that some people, we still don't all the time.
Correct.
So
that's my badging, prediction for you. Yes.
All right. Fashion statement. I like it, Lee. That's what I'm going to take away from this. That's my takeaway today. They're going to be a fashion statement. So, all right, before we wrap, because you and I could probably go for hours, but we're not going to. I have to do Badge Blitz with you, which is a segment where we wrap every episode, and it's 60 seconds, and I'm just going to hit you with rapid fire questions. So you just answer what's the first thing in your head. You ready?
Got it. Yep.
All right. Window seat or aisle seat?
I'm an aisle.
Favorite city you've ever visited?
Zurich.
What's the first thing that you pack when you travel for work?
My shoes.
Trade show, floor walk, or keynote session? What do you enjoy more?
Floor walk.
One booth giveaway item that you can't resist grabbing at a trade show.
Coffee.
Mine used to be Axis chapstick, but I couldn't find any of that this year. So if anyone listens to this from Axis, like please bring back the chapstick because it was awesome. All right. If you had to describe the state of the access control industry in one emoji, what would it be?
The head explosion.
I like it. What's one question you wish I had asked you today?
How are you doing?
How are you doing, Lee?
I'm good. We got a little stress, but all in all,
All in all, you're good. Well, good.
Oh,
Well, I'm good too. And it was fun to have you on. So thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. I always love connecting with you. And I'm sure someone was going to get some value out of your fashion statement ideas in this session.
it's mutual. So thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Lee. And to everybody else, we hope you'll join us next time as we take you beyond the badge.